In the 9th century, the patchwork of Anglo-Saxon kingdoms began consolidating under the threat of Viking invasions. Young Alfred the Great of Wessex emerged from the misty fields, guiding his soldiers against the invaders. Cold air filled the lungs of his warriors as they fought to defend their homeland, beginning the slow formation of a united England. Alfred's military success wasn't just about strength, but strategy, fortifying towns, training an army, and establishing law and education. As his soldiers built defensive burhs, they braved cold winters and harsh winds. The loyalty of his troops and vision of unity made him the first true English monarch. Though Alfred secured Wessex, Viking raids didn't cease. His successors, including Edward the Elder, spent years fighting off the Danes in bitter, rain-soaked battles. Troops moved cautiously through forests, using the unpredictable English weather to their advantage as they sought to push back the invaders. Aethelstan, Alfred's grandson, expanded his influence across the British Isles, defeating rivals in fierce battles like Brunanburh in 937. His soldiers, marching across muddy hills and jagged coasts, secured the land's unification under a single English crown. With each victory, Aethelstan solidified the monarchy, laying the foundation for a powerful kingdom. Despite Aethelstan's success, the Danes returned with renewed strength. By 1016, Knut the Great, a Viking king, ruled England, his troops cutting through England's fog-laden forests. Knut's reign brought a rare period of peace as he unified England, Denmark, and Norway under his empire. In 1066, William the Conqueror set sail for England, determined to claim the throne after King Edward's death. His Norman army, seasoned from years of battle, fought through the rain and mud at Hastings, eventually defeating King Harold. The Norman conquest reshaped English society as castles rose and French influence spread. As the winds howled over the newly built Tower of London, William worked to consolidate power, introducing the feudal system. Norman soldiers patrolled the rugged countryside, enforcing his rule with an iron fist. His control ensured the English monarchy's survival, but the cold winters tested both conquerors and conquered alike. Henry II, crowned in 1154, inherited a fragmented kingdom and set about unifying it through justice. His knights rode through frost-covered villages to enforce the rule of law, while Henry created the foundations for English common law. The weathered roads of England echoed with the hoofbeats of reform as Henry's judicial legacy took shape. In 1170, a chill hung over Canterbury as Archbishop Thomas Becket, once a close friend of Henry, was murdered by the king's knights. The bitterly cold night became a symbol of the king's overreach and the growing tension between church and monarchy. The shock of Becket's death reverberated across England, forcing Henry to repent publicly. King Richard I spent most of his reign on crusade, marching through the blazing sun of the Holy Land, while England's nobles schemed in his absence. The English crown felt the strain as Richard's costly campaigns drained the treasury. Yet his knights marched on, driven by loyalty to their charismatic king. When King John took the throne, heavy taxation and loss of French territories led to widespread discontent. In 1215, under the oppressive heat of a June sun, John reluctantly signed the Magna Carta at Runnymede, his soldiers watching with tense anticipation. This moment was a turning point, establishing limitations on royal power and planting seeds of constitutional monarchy. Edward I, known as Longshanks, marched his troops across England and into Wales and Scotland, determined to expand English control. His armies battled through icy rivers and steep highland hills, clashing with fierce local resistance. His ruthless campaigns earned him the title of Hammer of the Scots, securing England's dominance, but at great human cost. The year was 1337, and Edward III claimed the French crown, sparking the 100 Years' War. English soldiers, weary from long campaigns, battled under the hot sun and freezing winters of France. The use of the English longbow at Crécy and Agincourt decimated French knights, making England a feared power in Europe. As the war raged, the Black Death arrived in 1348, killing millions. Soldiers returned to England only to find their homes empty and fields abandoned under grey, rain-heavy skies. The plague's devastation reshaped the English monarchy as labor shortages and societal changes challenged the king's authority. Civil war broke out between the houses of Lancaster and York in the mid-15th century, dividing England. Blood-soaked battlefields, like Towton in 1461, saw the snow stained red with the blood of thousands. England's fields lay in ruin as the noble families fought for control of the crown. After years of conflict, Henry Tudor emerged victorious at the Battle of Bosworth in 1485, becoming Henry VII. His march through the fog-covered fields of Leicestershire, followed by his loyal soldiers, ended the War of the Roses. His reign marked the birth of the Tudor dynasty and the restoration of peace. The reign of Henry VIII was marked by dramatic changes as the king broke from the Catholic Church in his quest for an heir. Soldiers rode through winter storms to enforce the dissolution of the monasteries, tearing down centuries of religious tradition. The Reformation shook the foundations of English society, altering the monarchy's relationship with the Church. Queen Elizabeth I inherited a kingdom threatened by internal strife and external enemies. Under the dark clouds of war, her sailors faced the Spanish Armada in 1588, their ships battling through violent storms. The Armada's defeat marked England's rise as a naval power, while Elizabeth's reign brought cultural prosperity and exploration. In 1642, tensions between King Charles I and Parliament exploded into civil war. Soldiers, often drenched in mud and rain, fought brother against brother in battles like Naseby, while the monarchy's authority crumbled. Charles's execution in 1649 sent shockwaves across Europe as England became a republic under Oliver Cromwell. The monarchy was restored in 1660 under Charles II, who returned to a kingdom eager for stability. His reign was marked by excess and celebration, but beneath the surface, old tensions remained. The streets of London, glittering with royal pageantry, masked the simmering discontent that would soon boil over. In 1688, King James II fled as William of Orange invaded England in what would become known as the Glorious Revolution. The frosty November air bit at William's soldiers as they marched toward London, meeting little resistance. The peaceful transfer of power marked the start of a constitutional monarchy, with Parliament's authority firmly established. In 1714, the crown passed to George I of the House of Hanover, whose troops maintained order through cold and rainy London streets. His reign ushered in an era of political stability, but also parliamentary dominance, weakening the monarchy's power. The monarch's role shifted further from ruling to reigning, as prime ministers like Robert Walpole emerged. By 1776, tensions between Britain and its American colonies had reached a boiling point. British soldiers marched through the icy woods of New England, battling against American revolutionaries. Despite their training and discipline, the loss of the colonies marked a significant blow to the British monarchy. As King George III descended into madness, his son George IV ruled as regent. The cold winds of war swept across Europe as Napoleon's armies clashed with British forces, culminating in the famous Battle of Waterloo in 1815. British soldiers, marching through rain-soaked fields, emerged victorious, ensuring Britain's dominance for the century ahead. The 19th century saw Queen Victoria ascend the throne in 1837, her reign marking the height of the British Empire. British soldiers, officers in red coats, marched across vast colonies under blistering heat and heavy rains, extending the reach of the monarchy. Victoria's era defined Britain's global power, but also brought challenges of industrialization and reform. Under Queen Victoria's rule, the Industrial Revolution transformed England. Factories rose, powered by coal and steam, as soldiers and laborers alike navigated the smog-filled streets of growing industrial cities like Manchester and Birmingham. The railroads stretched across the countryside, allowing raw materials and goods to move faster than ever before, while the rumble of machines echoed across Europe, signaling an era of unprecedented change. In the dark, cramped factories, men, women, and children toiled for long hours, enduring the harsh realities of industrial labor. The winter chill seeped into the poorly insulated mills, where workers operated massive machines with precision, their fingers numb from the cold. Amid the noise and smoke, a sense of determination grew among the working class, demanding better wages and conditions. As factories expanded and profits soared, inequality became increasingly visible. Labor unions began forming in the shadow of towering smokestacks, calling for reforms in worker rights and safety. By the mid-19th century, strikes became common, with workers risking everything in pursuit of a more just society. Braving the cold winds of political change, the invention of steam-powered locomotives revolutionized transportation, connecting cities and regions across Europe. The ground trembled beneath the weight of steel trains as they sped through lush valleys and snow-capped mountains. This surge in mobility not only boosted the economy, but also helped unify nations, reshaping the political landscape of Europe. With factories clustering in urban areas, cities like London, Paris, and Berlin swelled with new residents. Rows of brick tenements sprang up to house factory workers, while pollution blackened the skies and the rivers carried the byproducts of industrial production. The cold, damp air in these expanding cities reflected the harsh conditions for the urban poor, but the growing middle class saw opportunities to flourish. Rural communities felt the pull of industrialization, as many left their villages to seek employment in the booming cities. Yet, innovations in agricultural machinery allowed farms to produce more with fewer workers. The sprawling English countryside, once quiet and undisturbed, now echoed with the clatter of machines, ploughing fields beneath grey, rain-filled clouds. As industrialization took hold in Britain, its influence spread across Europe. Germany, Belgium, and France embraced the steam engine and factory system, transforming their economies. European soldiers, accustomed to marching in lines, now found themselves in mechanized armies, facing a future in which warfare would also be shaped by industry. As machines began to dominate production, thinkers like Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels critiqued the capitalist systems that fueled the Industrial Revolution. Writing in cold, smoke-filled cities, they highlighted the exploitation of workers, advocating for revolutions that would reshape society. Their ideas, born in the industrial age, would later inspire political upheavals around the world. The same advances that powered factories also transformed warfare. Industrial innovations like rifled barrels, steam-powered ships, and railroads allowed armies to be equipped and moved faster than ever. Generals, once reliant on horses and foot soldiers, now had to reckon with the cold efficiency of mass-produced weapons and machinery. The sight of young children laboring in factories sparked outrage and eventually led to calls for reform. Children as young as 6 worked under grueling conditions, often alongside their parents, enduring long hours in cold, dimly lit factories. By the mid-19th century, reformers successfully pushed for laws limiting child labor and improving conditions for workers. Europe's industrial prowess began to stretch beyond the continent, influencing global markets and colonies. Cotton from India, rubber from Africa, and sugar from the Caribbean fueled Europe's factories, driving wealth into its growing cities. Ships laden with goods and soldiers sailed through cold, choppy waters, expanding Europe's reach across the globe. In the Crystal Palace, London hosted the Great Exhibition of 1851, a showcase of industrial and technological advancements from around the world. The cold English spring didn't dampen the enthusiasm of visitors who marveled at inventions like steam engines and telegraphs. This exhibition marked the zenith of Europe's industrial dominance, solidifying Britain's place as the workshop of the world. Fueled by industrial power, European nations sought new markets and resources, leading to the expansion of empires in Africa and Asia. Troops marched under hot tropical suns, securing territories for European powers hungry for raw materials. The machinery of empire, driven by industry, reshaped entire continents and sowed the seeds for future conflict. As the Industrial Revolution progressed, traditional aristocracies faced challenges from the emerging middle class, whose wealth was derived from trade, industry, and finance. The once rigid social order was eroded by the shifting economic landscape as factories replaced manorial estates as centers of power. Soldiers, factory owners, and politicians alike began navigating this new world of wealth and influence. The Industrial Revolution left an indelible mark on Europe, reshaping its cities, economies, and societies. The cold steel of factories and railways still stands as a reminder of the era that transformed the continent, bringing both progress and challenges. Its influence stretched far beyond Europe, setting the stage for the modern world, with all its technological marvels and deep inequalities. Our journey through time comes to an end for today. We embark on new adventures every week. If you relish the experience, please like and subscribe.